think we'll open it up for questions now from the audience. Matt?
Do we have any sense what Lincoln thought of this book, and did he comment on it in any public way?
No, I wish we did, but we don't from his private papers. One thing we do have is that these first volumes started out as as sort of an attachment to Lincoln's message to Congress. And so Lincoln will comment on the papers in the volumes in which he's president simply by, in the speech that he gives, in the document that starts out the front of the volume. And so what he says in this 1861 volume is essentially that these documents demonstrate that the Confederacy had hoped that mere economic interest would be enough to draw other countries away from the Union and towards themselves, and these documents will show that they've failed completely. And so, in the sense that they were not recognized by any other foreign country. We've looked through Lincoln's papers, and I've been in touch with the folks out in Springfield to see if they know of anything. We haven't found anything where he directly comments on it sort of outside its own universe. But every volume during his presidency starts out with his sort of covering letter, delivering it to Congress. And so he'll comment about them there.
Do we know if those covering letters from Lincoln were actually written by him, or were they kind of spoon-fed to him by Seward? Do we have anything in his handwriting, for example?
No, that's a good distinction. I don't know about that. I don't know.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, Aaron, talk a little bit about the Foreign Service and these people who were writing these, nothing personal.
I'm not in the Foreign Service.
But I'm curious about
things you want.
Yes, the people who were writing these from these posts. To what extent were they career people as opposed to political people, and to what extent were they the president's, philosophically aligned, or did he have a diversity among this? So just comment on that.
The Foreign Service did not exist in the 19th century in the way that we think of it today. In the sense that they're essentially, well, first of all, they were not ambassadors. The United States did not have ambassadors until 1893. And so these people had the rank of minister. Second of all, there was no career Foreign Service, and so these people were all appointed by the president. Obviously, someone like Adams, coming from a very illustrious family, since they were not career people, they had to be able to support themselves while they were abroad. And so I think because I guess I think I take that as sort of their main characteristics.
So just a little follow-up. Yeah. They allowed these presidential press conferences, right? But these weren't a bunch of hacks. I mean, these were not, war healers. These were people of education and probably had been governors and one sort of thing or another, members of Congress, those sort of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Now there may have been some hacks in Congress. But it is. I mean, I don't want to speak for all of them because I don't know them all very well. And so we're going to find out that the guy who went to Turkey was terrible, and then I'll feel bad. But I think it is the case that, I mean, again, the universe was just so much smaller, and so you do get someone of, it is more likely that you're going to get someone of Adams's lineage, in a position like that. Having said that, one of the reasons that there are a variety of reasons that the United States finally adopted ambassadors in 1893, but one of them was because it was becoming difficult to find people who could sort of fund their own way abroad, and so we ended up transitioning to what the rest of the world was doing.
Just one footnote to that. Lincoln's first Secretary of War, Simon Cameron from Pennsylvania, was finally removed, I think, in the early 1862 for utter ineptitude and a smell of corruption about him. And Lincoln sweetened the removal by appointing him the minister to Russia. If he was able to support himself in that post, one can only speculate where he found it from. Oh, in fact, I think Thaddeus Stevens, Congressman, Republican Congressman, remarked when he heard that Cameron, Stevens from Pennsylvania, remarked when he heard that Cameron was going to St. Petersburg, he said, we should tell the Tsar to take in his things at night. So not all of them were eminent gentlemen. But back to the audience. We should be talking. Any other questions? Any comments, questions? Yes, sir, right here in front. Yeah.
Is there a comparable set of volumes that the Confederacy kept? Were they kind of motivated to spin their side in documents? And as a follow-up before I even hear the answer, have there been any projects that your office has undertaken, say, with the foreign ministries of Britain and others to kind of compare, here's what your volumes say, here's what our volumes say, here's what's in the archives we didn't print, what you didn't print.
Right.
Can we build a bigger picture?
Two fantastic questions. The first one on the Confederacy. We've uncovered some sort of one-off publications, sort of similar to what was happening in the United States prior to 1861, but I'm not aware of anything of similar scope, scale, that sort of thing. So the answer is sort of. And then on the second issue, there were other countries who had similar publications at this time. Great Britain had its Blue Book series, and in fact, one of the interesting things about this volume is that Lord Lyons, the British representative here, as soon as it was published, immediately sent it over to Britain, where it was then reprinted in its entirety in Britain's, in their foreign relations series. So it definitely got exposure immediately in Europe. Our office has not done anything in this time period with other countries. There are about, today, returning to the present for just a moment, there are about 24 other countries around the world who have similar documentary editing projects. Although we are, today we're certainly the largest and most comprehensive of all of those. We haven't reached out yet to any of those other countries to talk about the 19th century, although I'd certainly love to. So, I'm sorry about that.
I think the gentleman in the back row was here. Did you had a question? Yeah, you
Yes. I was just wondering, of the 10,000 copies issued later, who all was getting that? Were they newspapers, university, or public library?
Wait, that is a great question.
Surprising it became so popular, you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad. The short answer is we don't know, but I'm going to give you the long answer too, which is this is actually one of the things that I'd really like to get to the bottom of as we continue our research, because 10,000 is a huge number, and I'd like to figure out what's happening to them. This is also the sesquicentennial year, as it happens, for the government printing office, also founded in 1861. So we are one of their first products. I've looked through their records, and unfortunately, they're pretty sparse. They don't include anything on this. So I'm trying to develop some other avenues. Our best guesses as to where these ended up. Certainly, congressmen requested them. We know they went to newspapers. I'm sure some ended up at colleges or libraries. We know that they went overseas, and then not only to, I guess I should say, to our legations, but also to other foreign countries, like this first volume being reprinted by the British. So clearly, their representatives here were circulating them out as well. Eventually, not in Lincoln's time, but towards the end of the 19th century, these volumes were used as sort of reference materials by our embassies overseas. And so if someone had a question about some point of international law, they could go to FRUS, look up what someone had done in another country, and then refer to that. And so we have another researcher in our office who's covering the post-Civil War period has uncovered things in the National Archives where people have cut out these volumes and said, here, this is what you're supposed to do, and then mail it to someone else. They were used as a sort of reference work among our diplomats themselves. Those are all the ideas we've been able to come up with. So.
Anything on, from this side of the room here? Okay, we'll go back here. Ma'am, you.
Oh, I just wanted to know, are the books ever amended to include the material that you said at one time might be of a very sensitive nature or personal nature, but at the same time, it's very important to have had that in.
Right.
And so you're kind of master of it.
No, we don't, I'm not aware that anyone has ever gone back and done sort of a retrospective, publication. Now that we're 50 years down the line, we can add this stuff. But it is all at the National Archives. So anyone who was curious and wanted to see it can go look at it. Just unfortunately requires a bit more legwork.
And kind of a follow-up to that, is there, as a result of the project you're involved in, is there some movement toward maybe reissuing this, or maybe with additional material as a Department of Publication?
Well, what I can say is that at some point we are going to get this up on our website. We have a project to put we published about 450 volumes, or 460 volumes, all together in the past century and a half. But at some point, all of those will be on the web. Right now, there are no plans to do a retrospective for the 19th century because we're simply trying to keep up with Nixon and Kissinger.
I meant even of modern times, today, because things change in politics.
Sure.
And sometimes we're not talking about certain things, or you can't publish it. And so that's what I was really, I'll let the 19th century.
Okay. You mean for the volumes we're putting out now?
Yeah, because now there's so many things you can't.
Right.
You can't probably talk about.
So what we do is, again, I think an improvement over this is any time that a document that we publish has excisions, even if the whole thing is redacted, we do two things. One, we publish a file citation for every document, so it can be located in the National Archives. And then two, whenever something is taken out, we say exactly how much was taken out. Here, there's just a row of asterisks. That means a sentence, or in some cases, a couple pages. But right, we'll always say, 5 lines not declassified, 3 pages not declassified, chart not declassified, dollar amount not declassified, whatever it is, we say exactly what it is. So if you have that, and you have the file citation, then 10 years down the line, if you do a FOIA request, you may have better luck because of the passage of time of getting things out than we did when the book came out. So we always provide a trail for people in the future to try to get the material that we weren't able to get released now.
Okay, other questions? Yes, sir.
This is partly a facetious question. Looking at 30 or 40 years hence, when someone looks back at the Obama administration, will WikiLeaks make it easier, since many of them have already been declassified?
Don't think we can really comment on
My instructions are to jump out the window if anyone mentions
We can neither confirm nor deny. Ma'am.
What about the size of the volumes over the years? Is there a fair consistency in the number?
You mean like the number of pages? Or
the number of documents.
Okay, yeah, they've gotten bigger.
I would assume so.
Right now our publications, a volume that we put out today is going to be between 900 and 1,100 pages long. Which probably then holds somewhere between 3 and 350 documents, depending on the topic. Or sometimes there's a lot of short telegrams going back and forth. Sometimes there's really long policy papers. It just sort of depends. But they're certainly much longer. And we also publish a lot more. I mean, they had one volume for 1861. We're going to publish about 54 volumes on the Nixon and Ford administrations altogether. So it's definitely expanded.
Are you sending it out to our, what's the distribution policy now?
Of today? Now, that I do know. distribution happens a couple of different ways. There's a federal depository library program in this country where there are about 800 libraries across the United States that automatically receive copies of most, if not all, government documents. And so automatically, hard copies of our books go there. Our books are also for sale at the Government Printing Office website. And then finally, all of our current publications we put online. Actually, the minute that as soon as we possibly can. So they're available both as a downloadable PDF and then also as a searchable document on the website. So if you want the image of the book, you can have that. If you just want the raw text, you can have that too. And we have people from all over the world that use our resources online. As I said, there are about 24 countries who have this type of program. There are a lot of countries who find out about their foreign relations through reading our documents about our relationships with their countries. So distribution happens now both in hard copy and the internet.
Other comments, questions?
One of the points you might make is that there's no copyright
yeah.
overlay on the volume, so that any publisher, anybody can take the text once it is out and can make a commercial run at filling a very high need.
Yeah,
that's a great point. None of these, all this stuff is in the public domain. So.
There was a John Marshall opinion back in the 1830s, I believe, that actually goes to the point that you made earlier, that the work of the government belongs to the people, and
yes.
therefore government documents cannot be copyrighted. This was an early 19th century decision by Chief Justice John Marshall, and it's still the law today. Government publications are not copyrighted.
So there are subscription sites that offer access to our stuff, but you can get it all for free.
Yeah.
Have any of the secretaries of state along the way had any input into this process and our current?
That's a really interesting question. The law that governs this series has there's sort of two big milestones when we look at, well, three big milestones when you sort of look past over the sesquicentennial. 1861, when it started. 1925, in which Secretary of State Kellogg promulgated sort of the first set of rules that actually told the public how documents were being selected and what, sort of what the mindset was behind selecting them. And then lastly, 1991, which is when the law that currently governs our series was passed. Our office put out volumes in the late 80s, one on Iran, one on Guatemala, that were not up to, did not include information about covert actions that were well known in the academic community. And so there was this enormous public uproar, and that is what got us the current law that governs the series in 1991, which expanded our access into federal documentation, put the 30-year deadline down as for when we were supposed to be publishing, and finally established this thorough, accurate, and reliable bar for our work. So I know, I'm guessing Seward was involved in this because the department was small. I know Kellogg was involved in 1925 because he wrote that. The 1991, Josh was do you know about the Secretary's involvement there?
The department wasn't in favor of the law. I'm not sure if that was direct from Baker's office or whether that was.
Okay, all right. My colleague Josh Botts has been researching the 20th century history of FRUS, so that's why I turned over there. My guess is that the Secretary's interest, particularly as the department becomes larger and more complex, and the world becomes larger and more complex, is only in moments of crisis. And so, as Josh says, the department wasn't in favor of this, but otherwise I'm guessing they probably wouldn't have much reason to notice.
Other questions? A bit of time left. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to know, is there any original writing that you do and insert in there to point things out, or do you just kind of work
In-
out everything that you're, yeah.
In
you-
what we published
Right,
today?
to put things in context.
Right,
yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, the documents that we publish are annotated.
Mhm.
And we do this for a couple of reasons. One, to provide context, so it's not just documents floating
Right.
in the ether. But another reason is because we can't publish all the material that we would want to. I think there's something like, in the Nixon administration, I think there's something like 4 million classified pages of information. Okay, we're not going to come anywhere near that, even with 58 volumes. But through footnotes, we can say, okay, you know, we can't publish, we found a lot of material on this topic, you can go here to find it if it's something you're interested in. So we use annotation both to explain the context of the documents we are publishing and to point researchers in areas that they can go to find material that might be of interest to them. There's no annotation in this volume. That's another thing where I think we do probably better than they did back then. These are just sort of the documents. There's no context or explanation or anything. But now we provide that for readers as a free service.
Tax dollars at work.
Hard at work, yes.
Other comments? I think they just have time for a couple more questions.
We have time for one more question? Or?
Well, let me intervene. I'm sure in some sense his boss. I just want to say this is an extremely talented individual in a very talented group, and you can't begin to believe how daunting the task is to look at all this material and make rational sense of it, and to do the compilation and make the cuts that you have to, because for many of them, you can hear the groaning in there. It's like amputation. They come up with extraordinarily high-quality volumes, and I think that Aaron and his colleagues deserve enormous credit for what they do.
Thank you, sir.
On that note.
Dr. Mars and Mr. Carnahan for being here with us tonight, and thank you to the U.S. State Department for agreeing to do this program in partnership with us. Our next program is a Cottage Conversation with Adam Goodhart on January 19th, so I hope that we see all of you back then. If you want more information on that program or on membership to President Lincoln's Cottage, a wonderful idea for a Christmas gift, please see one of our staff members after the program or visit our website, lincolncottage.org. We're able to offer the Cottage Conversations program, which is our largest public program that we do, in part through support from the Abraham Lincoln Bicentennial Foundation this year. And we are dedicating this entire series of Cottage Conversations for this year in memory of our dear friend and supporter, Marilyn Lynch. So we hope to see you all again on January 19th, if we don't see you sooner. And if we don't see you sooner, we hope that you have a safe, peaceful, and joyful holiday season.